Smoking. Were you expecting me to say something else? Alrighty then. The dude's going, back to the 90s.
Dude who loves movies.
The dude's going, back to the 90s.
Dude who loves movies.
What's up, dudes and dudettes? My name's Cody, and I'm just Dude Who Loves Movies, and today I want to talk to you guys about Jim Carrey. Not only do I want to talk to you about Jim Carrey, but I kind of want to focus on a specific part of his career, and that's going to be 1994. Now, I don't think that there's any question that he wasn't the king of 94. He absolutely owned that year with banger hits like Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. All three of those movies were huge hits that helped build and catapult his career. Before we get started, I want to welcome you guys all back to 90s Month here on Dude Who Loves Movies. And I thought, what better way to continue 90s Month than a 90s legend, Jim Carrey. Now, Jim Carrey has been in my life practically my entire life. I have been a fan of his ever since In Living Color. Like, I was really little, like 4 or 5 years old, watching In Living Color. I was a huge fan of that show. I loved his Vanilla Ice, his Snow Informer. The background guy is my favorite character. And of course, Fire Marshal Bill. This was at a time when he was going by James Carrey. He was still relatively unknown. Yes, he had some movies in the 80s, like Rubber Face, Once Bitten, and Earth Girls Are Easy, but those didn't really do much or make an impact until later on, after 94. So from 90 to 94, he was on In Living Color, and people were starting to recognize him from all of his characters and skits and whatnot. But most people knew him as the white guy from In Living Color. But that all changed in 94, when he became a megastar and a household name. On February 4th, 1994, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective was released in theaters, grossed over $107 million worldwide on a $15 million budget. This movie was a mega smash that nobody saw coming. It got terrible reviews. People thought it was so stupid.
And you know, February has just begun, but you're going to hear a lot more about Ace Ventura: Pet Detective from me next January on our Worst of the Year show. This is an appallingly bad movie. Jim Carrey, the star and co-writer of this mess, is so obnoxious he makes Jim Varney and his Ernest character seem as brilliant as Chaplin's Little Tramp.
You keep Jim Varney and Ernest's name out your mother mouth. I'm only kidding.
Shockingly bad.
Kind of grateful for this film because occasionally people say, have you seen any really bad movies lately?
What's the worst?
You know, you're trying to, you might have several candidates and you can't decide among them. And now I've got one I won't have to think about. I can just say Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
When this movie came out, I remember watching the TV spots and just looking at his hair, his clothing. I thought this was hilarious. I had to see this. So I was very excited when my grandma rented it when it came out. And it was a game changer. I remember watching it over and over again. And it was a movie that I quoted all the time. I still quote it all the time. You can't tell me that you've never came out of the bathroom and gone,
"Do not go in there." Woo!
Or seen a sliding glass door and have done the... You've never seen a package come in the mail and be like, this was delivered by Ace Ventura. I even tried to replicate his hair when I went to school and everything. I remember I wanted to go to picture day with Ace Ventura hair, and I just could not do it right. I never could. Now I'm going to tell you a quick story. So about a year later, my grandma was taking me to see Batman Forever, which, has Jim Carrey as the Riddler in it. Well, anyways, we're sitting there during the trailers, and they show a trailer. A trailer comes up, and it's, it shows like all these islanders. They're all dancing in front of a fire. And, they're jumping out of the way. The next person jumps in, dances, jumps out of the way. Then the very last guy jumps in front, and he's dancing. He takes off the mask, and it's Ace Ventura. And it was a teaser for Ace Ventura 2, When Nature Calls. I have never been so excited in my life. I stood up and was like, yeah! And I remember I was like, sit down. But I was so excited. And I miss those times where you didn't even know a movie was coming out until you were watching the trailers in the theater. Those were a special time. They really were. And I always think about that. That's like one of my favorite theater experiences. And I wish that I could experience movies like that again without knowing that they're coming out until you see like the poster at the theater or the trailer on the big screen. Ace Ventura also made me a lifelong fan of Dan Marino. I remember back then I used to call him Dan Bean Burrito. I don't know. That's what a 5-year-old says. All right, well, let's rewind it back to 1994. And this is a few months after Ace Ventura was released. July 29th, 1994, The Mask was released in theaters and grossed over $350 million worldwide on an $18 to $23 million budget. Now, The Mask is what you call a mega hit. But let's see what those pesky critics had to say.
Jim Carrey, he of the annoying overbite, is back in action as the Mask, and I have to admit it, I enjoyed a lot of this film. A great movie dog, a smart little Jack Russell Terrier that helps Carrey break out of jail, but has a little trouble reading lips. This is a classic comedy scene.
All right, you gave the dog props, so I forgive you for the Jim Varney comment.
I liked it.
So you love this movie, but
No,
you're so
I liked it.
grudging toward poor Jim Carrey. You even attacked his overbite. You say it's annoying. What's annoying about
Oh,
it?
I find that what's annoying about him is that it's kind of...
I feel that Jim Carrey is extremely important to the success of this movie, and that somebody else in that character might not have done as good a job. And
What I don't like about Jim Carrey is that he's got that predatory thing held in check as an ingredient in the film. Okay? He works.
I actually got to go see The Mask in theaters during its original theatrical run. My sister was going with her friend and her parents asked if I would like to come with. And of course, I jumped at it. I was absolutely, I'll go see this movie. And I guarantee you, I sat there the whole time in awe of what I was seeing. Like, all of a sudden, Ace Ventura became this like superhero, and it blew my mind. I'm sure it did. I know it did. A really cool thing with The Mask is they release action figures with the release of the movie, and I had all the action figures and I play with those all the time. When the movie was released on VHS, my sister and I watched it over and over again. And I remember after the movie, after the end credits, they had an episode of Space Ghost, and Jim Carrey was on that. And I could have sworn that there was a music video for Harry Connick Jr.'s video, I Just Whispered Your Name. I just whispered your name. That song is a straight banger. Speaking of that song being a banger, it had an awesome soundtrack with, Fishbone, Escape, Tony, Vanessa Williams, Harry Connick Jr., like I mentioned. Hey, Pachuco! And also had, of course, Cuban Pete, which is a freaking awesome scene. One of my favorite scenes in the movie. Fun fact, this year I got to go see a 30th anniversary screening of The Mask in theaters, and during the Cuban Pete part, they show him, he's dancing and singing in front of like a movie theater. But this time I noticed one of the posters at the movie theater was Surf Ninjas, which I thought was really cool, which is, a New Line Cinema movie. And speaking of seeing this movie in theaters 30 years later, it was such a really cool experience because when you went and saw it, I felt like I was back in 94. I swear, it was almost a sold out theater. It was a pretty packed theater, and everybody was just immersed into the movie. Nobody was talking or on their phone. Everybody was laughing at the jokes like it was the first time seeing it. Everybody was just having a good time, and everybody was, sharing this experience together. After seeing this movie in theaters for the 30th anniversary, I really started to notice how much this movie is near perfect. This is a absolute masterpiece, in my humble opinion. Of course, my opinion, so don't come for me in the comments. But this movie is so good in so many different ways, and I love it. And I was so happy to see it again and experience it with the audience that I did. Seeing this movie 30 years later in theaters, this movie looked great, it sounded great, and the effects still held up. This movie needs a 4K release pronto. I would buy it day one. Milo looks great with the mask on. I love when he puts the mask on. It's so funny, and he saves the day. Awesome. I love when the dogs save the day. I quote the Milo get the keys all the time to my dog, and she never brings me cheese or keys. Dorian, he's so villainous. He looks great. He looks scary. I love the way he looks with the mask on. And also, this was the movie that introduced the world and a very young Cody to Cameron Diaz. Let's go back to where I got that VHS in 94. So when you put that VHS in, it starts showing some commercials of upcoming movies that are coming out. And one of those is another Jim Carrey movie coming out later that year. And can you guess what it was? December 6th, 1994. Dumb and Dumber was released in theaters and grossed $247.2 million on a $17 million budget. Jim Carrey ended 1994 with a straight banger, a juggernaut comedy, and a comedy named Dumb and Dumber. Not a lot of people are wanting to see a movie with that kind of title nowadays. So you got to give it to Jim Carrey and, of course, Jeff Daniels. They both did their part in this. But Jim Carrey was definitely a name that people did not want to miss, especially in theaters. I'm sure those critics would agree. Am I right?
I'll admit this. Jim Carrey is growing on me.
You know, I can't give this movie thumbs up.
Really?
But on the other hand,
God, I heard you laughing.
you heard me not only laughing, I almost had to be hospitalized. There was one moment in this movie that is probably the funniest moment I've seen in 5 years of comedies, maybe longer.
So you're saying there's a chance.
In general, I think you put your finger on it when you say it's a sloppy movie. I think that they made it in a hurry, that they didn't really polish things. There are a lot of jokes that don't pay off. There are kind of build-ups that kind of are left hanging in midair. There are moments that seem to be very ill-advised and don't work at all. And on the whole, I found the movie wasn't nearly as good as its best parts. But I agree with you that Jim Carrey is growing on me, and I would not have predicted this.
My humble opinion, I think Dumb and Dumber is one of the greatest comedies ever made. I think it's so hilarious. I laugh every time I watch it. And it's a movie that I can watch over and over again. And I do. I have watched it over and over again. And sometimes when it's on TV, no matter where it's at, I can sit down and watch it wherever it's at. And then if it's on again, watch it a second time. It's one of those comfort movies for me. And growing up, I never met another person who did not like Dumb and Dumber until I started doing YouTube. And a couple people are, I just don't like Dumb and Dumber, this and that. And, they're wrong. But I have to respect their opinion. Of course, that was a joke, guys. Another movie my grandma rented. My whole family watched it. We laughed so hard. And it was a movie where whenever I was at a friend's house, it would be on and we'd laugh and laugh, quote it. It was great. And I remember the following year for Christmas, my uncle got it for me on VHS. And it was one of my favorite presents that I got that year. This was another movie where Jim Carrey just got us with all those quotes.
Oh, big gulp, son. All right. Well, see you later. I got robbed by a sweet old lady on a motorized cart. I didn't even see it coming.
Someplace warm. A place where the beer flows like wine. I'm talking about a little place called Aspen. So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah!
I like it a lot.
Samsonite. I was way off.
I think that's what really makes a movie stand the test of time is when it's so requotable that people keep it alive with these quotes. And with the success of these three movies, a year later in 1995, all three movies got animated series. The Mask, the animated series, ran from August 12th, 1995 to August 30th, 1997 with 54 episodes. I remember this show the most. I enjoyed this one the most out of the three animated series. I don't know if it's because they showed it a lot more, but I really enjoyed this. I thought it was much more clever and the animation was much better. Dumb and Dumber, the animated series, aired October 28th, 1995 to February 3rd, 1996 with 13 episodes. This one I don't remember as much. I think it might be because it only had 13 episodes, so it didn't have enough episodes to go into syndication, so we never really saw the reruns of this. Ace Ventura, the animated series, aired December 13, 1995 to February 4th, 2000 with 41 episodes. So this show ran from 1995 to 1997, and then it got canceled from its original network, and then it went to Nickelodeon from 99 to 2000 with I think 13 episodes. There is a really cool 2-part episode crossover of the Mask animated series and Ace Ventura, the animated series. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you check out any of them. And of course, Jim Carrey did not reprise his role in any of these animated series. 1994 is no doubt a huge year for Jim Carrey, but Jim Carrey continued to have success for the next 30 years, and he's still having success, and now he's being introduced to a much younger audience, a new audience, with the Sonic series, and that is awesome. He is going to live on to be a pop culture icon, and I'm here for it. I talk about my love for the 90s all the time. I don't hide it. But in all reality, the 90s weren't easy for me. They were a rough time, especially around 94, 95. It was a time of a lot of things changing in my life, different situations happening. I will not go into details because, I like to keep things light and fun here. But if I ever could send a message to Jim Carrey, that message would be, thank you. Thank you for helping a really young child get through a really rough time. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you. Jim Carrey also taught me how to do this. Don't forget to roundhouse kick that like button. Comment, subscribe. Tell me down in the comments. Are you a huge Jim Carrey fan? What's your favorite Jim Carrey movie? It doesn't have to be from 1994. Tell me what your favorite Jim Carrey movie is of all time. And also, let me know which one's your favorite out of the three. The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, or Ace Ventura. Put it down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications because we are knee-deep into 90s month. Also follow me on Instagram at DudeWhoLovesMovies, one word. Cheers, who's respecting. Have a good day. Big gulps, huh? Well, see you later.
I'd like to ask you a few questions.